Another sunny day in South Florida that's blinding me as I'm driving. I got sunglasses, but I bought them on Amazon, and for some strange reason, they hurt my eyes. So I don't know if they're just too strong or what. They tend to hurt my eyes. So, wow, this guy is really close. So I don't normally wear them. But I'm kind of thinking I might put them on right now, actually. The sun is pretty blinding in the morning. I wanted to do a video on stuff that's been kind of running through my mind that I don't normally talk about. I think I kind of do need to talk about it because there are definitely people out there that probably need to hear this, or probably, you know, are looking to hear this. Okay, so my ex-wife, I met her we dated for about a little under a year. I met her online. We hit it off really well. She had a son. He was in middle school, I think, at the time. We hit it off really well. I wanted to get married. She wanted to get married. We got married after, you know, a little less than a year. Had a great wedding. I had a really good time. Everybody was awesome. We were married for 8 years. 8 years, I want to say. And it wasn't all bad. You know, there was definitely some good times. There was, you know, she's a good person. I won't ever badmouth anybody. I do think what happened, though, is I wasn't happy. And I'm sure she felt the same way. She wasn't happy. You go through a point in your life where you either have to make changes and accept that things aren't exactly the way you want, or you do something about it. And I feel as though there were things in our relationship that I didn't like. I went through a really tough time. Excuse me, my senators are going nuts lately. I didn't like my job. I started my job off as a web designer. My whole career was a web designer. I've been a web designer. I didn't keep up with the technology and I fell behind. I didn't like web design as much as I like graphic design. I loved graphic design. Like, graphic design is still one thing that I hold dear. I love. I always have and I always will. I definitely am not as good as some of the people out there. I think there's some people out there I've seen, especially on Twitter, who are really awesome, and I've never been good at drawing, so it's never been my thing. So I'm just good at manipulating photos, doing ads, doing banners, things like that. I'm very good at it, and I like it. And I wish I could draw, and I probably can draw. I just need to take time to kind of brush my skill up. But I wasn't happy with the design that I was doing at the company I was working at. I was working there for 6 years. I went into, at the time, I want to say, I was pretty much married to her through the whole time I worked at this company. So, probably for 8 years. But I started there as a designer. I moved over to IT, because they needed an IT person. I always wanted to get into IT. I've always liked IT, so I wanted to get into IT. So I got into IT. And from there, I didn't like it. It was insane. It was crazy. It was really busy. I worked at a company that owned a lot of subsidiaries. We were very short-staffed. It was really rough. It was very stressful. And what added to it is our relationship. I felt like she was always judging me on things I did. I always felt in my mind I was never good enough. I started to feel like my dad, in a sense, sometimes. And I don't know if that's just something I inherited or what, but I just felt like I couldn't do anything right. You know, I'd wash the dishes, they weren't clean enough. I didn't do enough. I didn't cook. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. And it wasn't that I couldn't do it. It's just, you know, she always kind of took control of it because she had a controlling personality. And I'm very passive. I'm a very passive personality. And I think that just kind of conflicted. But it does get worse. So I asked to go back to design. So I ended up going back to design. I like design, but then I hit this spot where I was bored again, where I felt like we were doing the same thing in and out every single freaking day. So I asked to go back to IT, And the main reason I wanted to go back to IT, and she'll tell you this isn't true, but I'm telling you straight from my heart it is true, is we were having a lot of problems, and I felt like she didn't want to be with me. And it didn't matter what I could do. Her son went off to college. I felt like she wanted to see him every weekend. I was stressed out. It was insane. And I understood it to a point, but then I didn't. I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. And I had a hard time saying no. So, she never forced me to go, but I just never wanted her to go by herself. That's a long drive to Orlando. So I went, I did that. And I probably shouldn't have said Orlando, but anyway, I did that. We went, and I just wasn't happy. And I took the job, and it consisted of a lot of traveling, which was nice. But holy shit, did it burn me out. I thought it was going to help our relationship. She had made a comment that it would be good for us to be separated and have some time away from each other. And I couldn't stand it. I felt so lost. I felt so... I remember sitting in Dallas. I was in Dallas with a coworker, a friend, actually. And I turned to him and I said, I think my marriage is done. I don't think my wife wants to be with me. And that was a weird feeling to go through. And I felt like that a lot. And it was really scary. And when I got back, I knew how much I hated the traveling. I asked to go back to design, and this is my own fault. I did it behind their back. I didn't tell them. I went to my old manager and asked him, and I got fired because I asked to go back and forth too many times apparently, which I thought was kind of a shitty reason to fire somebody. But I get their point, but in the same, I also don't understand why they couldn't have just, listened to my point of view and what I just wasn't happy, and they didn't seem to care. And then she lost her mind with me after that. Like, she got really mad at me. That day, I met up with some friends. I was afraid to go home and tell her that I lost my job. She was very, very judgy in our relationship at that point. And I guess to a point she might have had the right to be judgy, but I went out with some friends. I didn't tell her. I did tell her. I texted her, but I didn't come home. I was out with them, talking with them, and it wasn't like I was out all night. I was out till like maybe 7. I came home, and she was pissed at me. She was really pissed at me. I left early because you needed me, and you didn't even come home. Well, okay, why didn't you call me and talk to me? Why didn't you say, hey, do you need me? I'm here. Come home. Like, you didn't say anything to me. Like, I'm not a mind reader. So, like, that came up. That made me upset. So anyway, I'm looking for jobs. I find this job at this law firm. I like it. It doesn't pay a lot. I really like the job. It just doesn't pay a lot. So I ended up leaving for a better job at a really big company that paid me way more money, and I took it. And she was on board with me on that. So I took it, and COVID hit. And COVID's where everything just kind of fucking went down the tubes. So COVID comes, and I ended up getting laid off after 4 months. I mean, I'm struggling. I was kind of mad. We had just bought this house pretty far away from where we normally were. Where we met, where we had lived, where we had worked, where she had worked. And we were only at this house for a year. So we started talking about divorce. Because I just kept going, I'm not the right person for you. And I knew it. I knew deep down I wasn't the right person for her. I cared about her. I loved her. But I wasn't the right person for her. Because I could never do anything to make her happy. And it was just a miserable feeling for me to have to deal with it all the time. And I realize it now, especially being with somebody that's so different and somebody that I just click with automatically, that we just have so much more in common and we just understand each other. It makes me realize how unhappy I was. And it sucks because, it's 8 years of your life that goes by or whatever, but I ended up taking a shitty job. I was working at this really crappy job with this really shitty owner, and I couldn't deal with it. He was really underpaying me, and it was really far away from where I had moved back. So we had just gotten a divorce, and she had this insane idea that we were going to get back together after we got a divorce because that's what she had read, and that's what her idea in her head was. And I don't know. I'm the type of person, I always have been this way. If our relationship wasn't working, regardless if we were married or not, and you wanted to separate or you wanted to be apart, then why am I going to go back to you? Why would I do that? So I didn't do it. I just couldn't do it. She talked to me for a little bit, but I felt so hurt and so upset that she gave up on a relationship that I just couldn't deal with it. Like, I could not deal with it. I was like, I can't talk to her. I got the dog, so it was a whole change for me. I was a single guy. I had got a divorce. I was living in this. A buddy let me live in his house for 2 months. I stayed there. I helped him, and then I got my own place, and it was scary because I had never been on my own. I was on my own before, but I always had roommates, and I was never actually on my own. And I did it, and I'm still, currently doing it. But it's like, that's a scary adjustment. And when you're divorced, you divorced people out there know it's scary. It's a big change, and it is not something you can take lightly. And I don't think people out there, they live a lot of unhappy lives, and they're afraid to make action or do things, and then they just continue living that unhappy life. And that's craziness. It really is. But I get the fears. Fears can take control sometimes, and when they do, it sucks, man. It's hard to let them go. So after all of that, I just can't do it. She gets mad at me. She starts sending me text messages saying, you just not care about me? Why are you making me seem like I'm the bad guy, this and that? And it's like, I wasn't doing that, but you wanted a divorce. You gave up on a relationship. You gave up on our love. You quit. I didn't think I could trust her at that point in my life. Like, why would I go back to somebody that just gave up on everything we worked for? I just couldn't do it. And I know I said that I wasn't happy, but I was willing to work through it. I was willing to go to counseling. She didn't want to. So I think all of that together just hit me inside that I just wasn't, I couldn't process getting back together again. And I know that wasn't her plan, but that was my plan. I couldn't do it. So I met somebody. 7-8 months after I got a divorce. And you guys know her. It's Ziani. And she's awesome. She's amazing. She's probably not even one. She is the best person I've ever dated. Like, she just gets me. She just understands me. She's very forgiving, very caring, very open. And we just click. We live very much the similar type of life. So we understand each other very well. And I think that in general is something that you don't understand, because when you're single and you're divorced, or not even single, you're divorced and you're in the scary time, you don't know where you're going to make your money, you don't know what life's going to be like, you don't know how much you need, what you're going to do. And I still kind of go through it. But to find somebody, because you give up, you kind of like, oh, I'm never going to find anybody. I'm not going to, everybody gave up on me. The people I care about gave up on me. But my friends pulled me through it, and I met Ziani. So you add all of that in, and I got pulled out of it fast. And I talked to Ziani a little bit before we started dating, and we just talked a lot. Now, we've been dating for almost a year and a half now, and it's just great to have somebody who fully gets it. And I have my moments. I still do, because she put me through so much different stuff, my ex-wife, and not in her own way. Like, she didn't know she was doing it. It's just her personality. And like my personality, it just didn't work. And it sucks sometimes, but she would say things that have me judging myself. Like the dish thing I told you guys about. I do it now. I'm like, am I doing this correctly? The cooking. I always felt like I wasn't doing the cooking. She always jumped on me about how I wasn't doing this right. And it was just like, I get that way now, and I don't know why, but it's like having to rebuild myself. That's a part with divorce that's so hard for people. And it does get better, guys. It does. It feels like shit. It is a really tough time, but it gets better. I've got a great job. I've got a great girlfriend. She has an awesome daughter. Like, life is picked up. And it wasn't like that. And I have nothing against my past by any means, any shape or form. I really care about my ex and her son. I really do. But life goes on, and I can't, I've lost my best friend and my sister very early on in life. And it's, you can't live in regret and anger and just not being happy, because life is too damn short. And I just won't do that. I won't do that. There's things I want to fix in my life, like my weight and my health. But other than that, it's not, it isn't things, it's nothing like personal with my relationship or life. And it's just, it gets better. That's all I can tell you, is it gets better. So if you're divorced, or you're thinking about getting divorced, and shit is tough, and you're scared, you have the right to be scared, but don't let that fear overtake you. Don't let that fear steal your life. That is not what it's meant to do. And I think that's what people need to know. Everything does get better. Have a plan, have a purpose, have a goal, and try to look at the bright side of things, because that's what you need to do. That's just my story. I don't ever really voice it. I don't ever put it out there. I removed a lot of my social media that I did voice it on at the time, because I was just kind of venting. But I'm letting people know. And like I said, this is not an attack on my ex or anything like that. But I do hope that this helps people out there that have gone through something similar. And we're all to blame to a point of where relationships go. And I saw signs early on that I wasn't compatible, and I just pushed through it. So anyway, that's it. That's me venting. That's me discussing. That's me not living in fear and letting the world know what happened to me. And hopefully that helps somebody. So have a good one.